Thanks to President Trump's tireless efforts to secure a lasting peace, I am glad to announce the signing of today's historic economic partnership agreement between the United States and Ukraine, establishing the United States-Ukraine Reconstruction Investment Fund. This partnership allows the United States to invest alongside Ukraine to unlock Ukraine's growth assets, mobilize American talent, capital, and governance standards that will improve Ukraine's investment climate and accelerate Ukraine's economic recovery. The Development Finance Corporation will participate and help to establish this fund in collaboration with the government of Ukraine. Today's agreement signals clearly to Russian leadership that the Trump administration is committed to a peace process centered on a free, sovereign, and prosperous Ukraine over the long term. It's time for this cruel and senseless war to end. The killing must stop, and both the United States and the government of Ukraine look forward to quickly operationalizing this historic economic partnership for both the Ukrainian and American.
Well, that's what I voted for, guys. How about you? I was just thinking right now, just this week, I was thinking, man, you know what would be great is if we went back to doing exactly what the Joe Biden regime was doing in Ukraine. That would be perfect. You know, screw all this America first stuff. No, first comes Israel, then comes Zelensky's coke habit, then and only then do we care about American interests. And if that means we got to rebuild Ukraine with a new investment fund, so be it. Hey, guys, how you guys doing? Sorry if I'm a little unhappy tonight, but here we are. 100 days has gone by, and this was the announcement on the 101st. So I thought tonight we might do a little recap, and we'll be honest. We'll be honest. By the way, I saw on Rumble, before the stream even started, someone already gave it a thumbs down. So you can see whenever I'm actually critical and honest of the president, people get angry. So feel free to smash that like button. It does actually help, especially when people are intentionally downvoting a video that has not even been created yet, which is how that apparently goes. But you know, here on this channel, we try to respond to reality and the truth as we see it and call things out when things aren't looking good. So yeah, Mark Ashley Price says that's our Secretary of Treasury. Yeah, I couldn't be more ashamed. How sad. Like, and the horrible thing about this all is that Trump literally was given every opportunity to walk away from this Ukraine disaster, like on a golden platter. This very week, what just happened? Zelensky spit upon the Kellogg proposal. The Kellogg proposal was crap to begin with, but it was incredibly generous compared to what Ukraine's going to get when Russia's done with them. Zelensky didn't agree to a single thing in the Kellogg plan. He wouldn't agree to acknowledge Crimea, land that Russia has taken 11 years ago and is never going to give back. A population that's entirely Russian and happy to be Russian. Not in a million years is Crimea going to become part of Ukraine again. Zelensky would not agree even to that. He said, piss on your peace plan. No, we're going to win this war and you're going to win it for us. And then, as if that wasn't disgraceful enough, then he also spits on the ceasefire deal. He says, no, we're not going to do no 3-day ceasefire. No, we only agreed to unconditional ceasefire that they give us time to rearm and re-equip, which Russia has said from the get-go. No, we're not going to let you do that. We know how this goes. Every time we stop fighting, you guys just rearm, and we're not going to let that happen again. So no, show us you're at least serious and disarm for 3 days while we do, because we celebrate the defeat over the Nazis. No, as if that wasn't enough. As if all that wasn't enough. There was the ceasefire before that, the 1 month ceasefire when Trump met with Putin, or spoke with him over the phone, and they're like, "Well, yeah, we're not going to give you this unconditional ceasefire for reasons we've said a million times, but hey, how about this?" Trump asked him, it's a show of good faith. Just don't attack their energy facilities. Absolutely, right now, 1 month ceasefire, no attacking their energy facilities. What does Ukraine do? Piss on you guys. We're going to double our attacks on Russia's energy infrastructure. And then, as if that wasn't enough, then there was that disgraceful meeting that they had at the Pope's funeral. Incredible. Incredible. This whole event was choreographed by the Vatican, no doubt in cahoots with Maloney. They put 3 chairs out so that Macron and Zelensky could waylay President Trump. And to his credit, Trump told Macron to buzz off. And you guys all saw the photos of them sitting in St. Peter's Basilica, talking quietly. After Zelensky comes on and says, that was the best conversation with Trump I've ever had. Mark says, I don't think nothing satisfies you, Adam Lowell. Actually, we'll talk about Trump's first 100 days. There's a lot of good things that happened. This is what we've been saying from the get-go will be absolutely catastrophic. Because how is Trump going to get out of this one? He has now done a deal with the Ukrainians. And as a condition of that deal, he immediately started saying, we're going to start sending Patriot missiles to Ukraine. How is this not going to be Trump's war now? Russia just said, we're creating 2 new armies. 2 new armies. What's that for? For a war with NATO. Russia is going to see this through, and they are going to grind the Ukrainian military into a fine powder and destroy the Zelensky regime. And everybody has seen coming from a mile away that's going to be, wasn't Biden's fault. It was Trump's fault. It was all Trump's fault because he cut off the aid to Ukraine. He should have done more. And everyone who knows anything about this, it's not just me, by the way, Mark. It's also Steve Bannon. It's also who else has been talking about this from the get-go. Tucker's been warning about this. Charlie Kirk's been warning about this. Everyone is saying, Trump, do not get sucked into Ukraine. And he's gotten sucked into Ukraine. He has chosen to be sucked into Ukraine. And how in the world is he ever going to get that back? At this point, everyone's been warning about this, and he's got these people in his administration who know better. Like he had a godsend. Steve Witkoff comes in and talks to everybody, and is like, "Yeah, hey, boss, there's only one easy way out of this, and that is to have Ukraine and Russia negotiate. If they won't, then we leave." And and the easiest way to get agreements to say Ukraine's got to give up the territories that they no longer control, and then counterbalancing him and the other people in his administration, the smart people like J.D. Vance, you had the 3 amigos. You had Mike Waltz, Marco Rubio, and Keith Kellogg. Thank God, Mike Waltz is out now. Well, except he didn't get rid of him altogether. No, he sent him to the UN. Now, contrary to J.D. Vance's statement that was a promotion, which, good on J.D. for being a team player and making the spin nice and good and happy. It never looks good when Trump's firing people. Although, who are we kidding, folks? How many people did he fire the first time? There's going to be lots of firings. Those days will come. And he could have just cut Mike Waltz loose when it happened. Like all over the media. What were these stories? When they sent him to the UN just this past week. There was all these people familiar with the matter leaking to the media. And what they said, well, we just had to wait a little bit longer for this situation to blow over. Yeah, but first of all, why? Because everyone knew this was about anyway, with Signalgate. Everyone knows that. What do you mean enough time's passed? And secondly, it just looks less decisive. But first off, yes, folks, the UN ambassador is a demotion for sure. Mike Waltz is no longer in Trump's inner circle. He's been exiled to New York, to a organization that the Trump administration despises, as they should, by the way. Nothing wrong with despising the UN. However, it should be pointed out that other countries do take the UN seriously, and other countries, including Russia, by the way, say they've been complaining. We would like to be doing more to negotiate with you, which typically we do at the UN meetings, but you don't have a UN ambassador, so we can't. Well, now Mike Waltz is going to be, banging around the UN, being completely unproductive, just like Nikki Haley was in his first term. It might be good to have someone who is like genuinely supportive of Trump's agenda at the UN. There are such people in this country. You don't need to keep people like Mike Waltz around forever, By the way, there's been another news story about Mike Waltz. If you haven't seen this is hilarious. This is from Drop Site News. Caught this one. That's not it. Hold on. Let me remove this for now. I'll come back to that. No, this is the Drop Site News article. On the day he was fired as National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz used an Israeli app to archive Signal messages. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Even after Signalgate, Mike Waltz is still using Signal. And this is an actual video of a cabinet meeting. This is his last cabinet meeting, I think. And here's Mike Waltz on his phone, zoom and expand. And it says verify your TM Signal PIN, which what is that? It's telemessage, an Israeli app using a software called Signal Capture that it sells to governments and corporations to enable archiving. Oh, goody. Oh, goody. Mike Waltz's last day on the job as National Security Advisor. What's he doing? He's downloading all of his messages to an Israeli-owned app, an app linked to Israeli intelligence. Great job. Great job. Great job, Mike Waltz. You would think, like, after Signalgate 1, straighten up and fly, right? Because you're on, the heat is on and all that stuff. And just amazing. Just amazing. So that's Mike Waltz. Now, we don't know yet who will replace him as National Security Advisor. I can think of some good people. Colonel Doug McGregor would be outstanding. Even Daniel Davis, who was supposed to be Tulsi Gabbard's Deputy Director of National Intelligence until the U.S. Senate said no. Well, guess what? The U.S. Senate's not in charge of your National Security Advisor position. That's one that Trump absolutely should give to a hardcore America firster, one that might have problems getting confirmed in the Senate. By the way, speaking of confirmations, guess what else is in Mike Waltz's future? Senate confirmation hearings. Hey, Mike Waltz, you looking forward to those, I'll bet. I'm sure the Democrats will have some fun with you there. He'll get confirmed, though. But, I'm just saying. Anyway, but I don't think it's going to be any of those guys. Right now, it's Marco Rubio, who doesn't have enough work, apparently. I can't imagine this situation remains very long. I can't imagine it's going to be Steve Witkoff, because first of all, I mean, Steve Witkoff's clearly a very brilliant guy, but still doesn't have any national security experience. And besides that, seems like he's busy enough being Trump's top diplomat. So, he's kind of busy. One name that's come up a lot is Stephen Miller, which would be an interesting choice. Miller, of course, has been, I don't know, my nose is itching. Miller's been brilliant as Trump's he's his deputy White House chief of staff for policy, but he's his immigration guy, basically. But they've been talking about him being his national security advisor and essentially taking to the National Security Council what he did to the Department of Homeland Security, I guess. But again, Miller is absolutely perfect in his element in the office of the again, he's in the White House, but he's clearly working primarily on immigration policy and things of that nature. As a foreign policy guy, I don't know. There's a lot. I mean, certainly I like the idea that he would clean house at the NSC, but he's a hardcore Israel firster. And frankly, as long as his job is the border with Mexico, that's okay. I don't mind. But he was very much he's very much in support of, I think, attacking Iran, probably. So we'll see. I don't know. It is hard to say. He's also been a huge supporter of what I think is one of the worst things Trump's been doing, which is trying to deport people for criticizing Israel. He's also big in favoring proxy forces and private contractors over using the military for what the military's for, which, I mean, folks, if you want to see the distinction between public and private military operations, look at how our military is doing versus how Russia's military is doing. There's something to be said for being able to overrule the profit motive here and there. So, speaking of that, this is, again, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, folks. This has not been a good week for the U.S. military. What are the two big stories in the U.S. military this week? I can think of exactly two. One is that an aircraft carrier had to engage in rapid evasive maneuvers to avoid getting hit by a Houthi missile. And in the process, an FA-18 $60 million fighter got thrown overboard. Oops. And then the other story was today, or maybe it was yesterday, a Houthi missile hit Ben Gurion Airport in Israel. So it doesn't sound like the Houthis are down and out just yet. And that's all I've heard from in the world of the military right now. So I don't know. I'm sure Pete Hegseth's got a better story to tell. And by the way, I do think Trump is probably doing important things. His whole administration is probably doing important things to root out the trying to think of the right word. I'm thinking the word disruptor, but that's not quite the right word. The enemy agent, the radical left, the deep state, the swamp, and all of those agencies. And if that's what all of them are devoted to, great. But also all the more reason not to be, escalating and getting in foreign wars because we got enough problems to deal with on our own. So, with all that said, I guess let's kind of talk about the first 100 days of Trump, and then we'll get to the Officer Schurr case. As I mentioned, the best stuff has been on the immigration front, without any question. Not just that they have completely gone back to securing the border, but that all of this stuff, including the high-profile deportations, have absolutely struck fear into people even coming over. So, excellent progress there. No complaints whatsoever. Also, seems like lots of good things going on with the routing out of DEI and the radical transgender agenda that the federal government has been assisting with. It sounds like they are seeking that out and destroying it wherever they can find it. And anything that's federally funded is in their crosshairs. So that's fantastic. Great job for that. I will certainly give credit where credit is due. Trump has been an excellent opponent of DEI. Lee Zeldin and Chris Wright at the Department of Energy and Zeldin over at the EPA, they have been absolutely destroying the radical left-wing, all the red tape, all the radical environmentalist climate change cult stuff, and letting us build again and doing all kinds of great stuff there. Actually, we should talk about the lawsuit that Trump has filed. We'll get to that in a second. I'm going to talk about the Justice Department in a second here. The lawsuit Trump has filed against Michigan. So against Gretchen Whitmer. I just got my throat there. Gretchen Whitmer and Dana Nessel. Anyway, where was I? Tulsi Gabbard blowing the lid on the insurrections going on in the previous administration. Looking forward to a lot of great things coming out about that. So, and in fact, Tulsi Gabbard probably stop what might have been an attack on Iran, which unfortunately might yet occur. The neocons are not down and out, but I think it was Tulsi with her national intelligence estimate saying that Iran's not an immediate deadly threat to the United States that gave the other people who were opposed to starting a war with Iran, like J.D. Vance and the others, the intellectual ammunition they needed to win that argument that round. So good on that. RFK Jr. has been great. Looking forward to seeing more he's going to do. Going after Big Pharma. Some things we haven't seen much on yet, but some things take time. Tax reform takes time. Justice Department still waiting on seeing anything from Pam Bondi. But to be fair, she's got a lot of attorneys to fire and to replace. Donna, this is getting tiresome. Goodbye. Anyway, John Sauer, however, the Solicitor General, he has been fantastic. Fantastic. The Solicitor General is the one that actually represents the administration at all these appellate court hearings and defending the constitutionality of the things he's done against these rogue black-robed activist judges. So he's been absolutely awesome. But let's hope that we see more coming out of the Justice Department in general. And again, I'm sure she's got a lot of work to do to get rid of the Biden era staff. So willing to concede that that stuff does take some time. Speaking of the Solicitor General, there's been some news this week, folks. If you haven't seen, there's been some news in the case of our old pal Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia. He has some videos come out of his human trafficking stop. The video of that's now out, where the officers are like, as they're talking, they're like, absolutely, there's human trafficking. They're like, Did you guys read? Did you guys modify this van to have 4 rows of people in here? Because I couldn't believe how they were all packed in like sardines. And like, of course, this is a human trafficking operation. But because the Biden administration would not cooperate, they had to let him go. And then also video came out of his wife, saying that he beats her all the time and she's scared to death of him. So, perfect poster child for the Democrats' policies. Anyway, let's take a look at that lawsuit. You guys may have seen this. Here, I'll share the tab. This is the article in the Midwesterner. Trump sues Dana Nessel, Gretchen Whitmer over lawfare targeting the fossil fuel industry. And we'll look at the lawsuit in a moment here. And here's Dana Nessel's response. Let's see. Somewhere here, Nessel responds. Well, anyway, she basically just says that she doesn't think the lawsuit's got merit. But I'll tell you what, let's just go to the text of the lawsuit. Oh, come on, let me see. There must be a statement from Dana Nessel. It was here someplace. Oh, well, anyway, I'm not going to keep you guys tied up with dead air here. Let's go to the lawsuit. Here it is in the Western District of Michigan. USA plaintiff versus state of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer and Dana Nessel. And here's the introduction. United States facing an energy crisis, overabundance, blah, blah, blah. Trump declared an energy emergency, stating blah, blah, blah. As a result of state restrictions and burdens on energy production, the American people are paying more for energy. Blah, blah, blah. And Michigan, here we go. This is the important part. Michigan intends to sue fossil fuel companies to seek damages for alleged climate change harms. At a time when states should be contributing to a national effort to secure a reliable source of domestic energy, Michigan is choosing to stand in the way. This nation's constitution and laws do not tolerate this interference. So what this lawsuit is basically saying, because Nessel hasn't actually even filed the lawsuits yet, but because she can't stop yapping and her gums just keep on flapping endlessly, she's been just out and out saying, and she's even said, before Trump got elected, she said, I'm going to sue the Trump administration all day, every day. And of course, she's come out and just said, I'm going to sue the fossil fuel companies for all the environmental climate change they're causing. I'm going to sue them all. Which of course just shows bad faith and actual malice. And so they are being sued. So here's what they go on. This is some blah here. The parties, we know what this is. Here we go. Michigan has announced its intent to file litigation seeking to hold fossil fuel companies liable for purported contributions to greenhouse gas emissions. And there's an article in Michigan Capital Confidential. Shout out to the Mackinac Center. The specific theories on which Michigan would sue are known only to Michigan, but the goal of the lawsuit is clear: to extract large sums of money from fossil fuel companies for purportedly causing climate change impacts to Michigan. Which then they go out to say this is all regulated by the Clean Air Act. And that's basically it. That's basically what this is. That Nessel has been so egregious in just saying, I'm going to sue all these companies for causing climate change, that the federal government has said you are actually impeding what these companies can do at the national and even global level. So they go through all these treaties and frameworks, and can contrast in the fact that the party is not a party to the Kyoto Protocol or the Paris Climate Accords. And in fact, Trump invoked his authority under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977 to strengthen our nation's international economic position by imposing reciprocal tariffs on U.S. trade partners, which specifically exempts energy and energy products from the tariffs. So anyway, this is basically what the lawsuit is saying, that what you are doing is you are preempted by the Supremacy Clause, which holds that it's the federal government that has authority over the air quality, and you can't sue out of state companies claiming that the air in Michigan has been harmed by a company in Florida. It doesn't work that way, and that we have the authority as the national government to stop you from using and abusing the state resources on these ridiculous, retarded lawsuits. So there you go. That is what the lawsuit says. And today, I just noticed here, it does actually say that the state law is in conflict with the Clean Air Act. Did they actually call for anything with respect to the state law? I don't think they do. Let's see here. Let's go to the claims for relief, or the prayer for relief. So there's the violations, violating interstate commerce clause, violating the foreign commerce clause. Michigan's anticipated lawsuit is not a state tax, but the same limiting principles apply to a state's power to impose taxes on foreign commerce. Also apply to states' power to impose penalties, fines, and other civil liability on foreign commerce, which is what they're jeopardizing, because we sell oil, for example. So it says the United States does not challenge Michigan's authority to regulate the local activities of international corporations, such as emissions from in-state facilities or taxes on in-state sales. But Michigan's anticipated lawsuit does not fall within this permissible rule for states. Rather, they're going to want to expropriate funds from worldwide extraction and refining with minimal nexus to Michigan, imposing a disproportionate burden on foreign commerce, undermining the federal government's ability to maintain uniformity in regulating environmental, trade, and national security policies. So that's the gist of it. And let's just see what they call for here. Declare Michigan state law claims unconstitutional. Enjoin defendants from taking actions to assert Michigan state law claims. Award the U.S. its costs and award further relief as the court may deem just and proper. So there you go. That is from Pam Bondi's office, the Department of Justice. And there you go. So that is the fine work of the U.S. Department of Justice there. But of course, there's a lot more to do. So some good things, some great things have happened in the first 100 days of the Trump administration. However, well, not where the administration has been really bad. First off is anything relating to civil liberties. They have done nothing about the Real ID mandate. In fact, Kirsty Noem bragged that they're going to be implementing the Real ID mandate starting May 7th. So there's one thing. The deportation of lawful, legal resident aliens based purely on their advocacy opposing the genocide in Gaza is disgraceful, and it's been clearly a visible, noticeable waste of the Trump administration's time. You've had Pam Bondi talking about it. You've had Kash Patel talking about it. They've been talking about partnering with people. Immigration's gotten involved in this stuff. It's muddying the waters, as we talked about, on these much more sensible, totally lawful deportations of foreign terrorists and drug dealers and gangbangers and human traffickers. Maybe those would be the first people that should be deported. Because as we looked at when we saw that Glenn Greenwald video, they're making it easy for them to think this is all a wholesale attack on civil liberties, because they're conflating the deportation of illegal alien criminals with non-illegal, legal, lawful residents being deported just over free speech. So there was that issue. Nothing's been done about the mass surveillance. The NSA, we've heard nothing from them whatsoever. Presumably all the mass spying is still going on. They have done nothing to reform the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. No word whatsoever from any federal agency stopping that on their own initiative, much less, well, in Congress, the FISA battle is going to come up again probably next year. Not great stuff yet on the foreign policy front, folks. We just talked about this, but I mean, again, I hope something's going to happen that's going to change the direction of the conflict in Ukraine. But as it looks right now, Trump has missed the perfect opportunities to get out of that mess. And the fact that he has shown this level of weakness towards Zelensky has been just pathetic. It's disgraceful. I mean, as soon as Zelensky spits on the peace deal that Kellogg came up with, Trump signs the minerals deal, which, by the way, the deal, there is a lot of questions about what the heck is in that thing. And frankly, we haven't seen it. It's been withheld. We don't know what's been signed and what hasn't been signed. We only get these vague statements that we just heard from Scott Bessent, but it doesn't sound any good, does it? It sounds like it's an investment partnership. Well, that's a great investment. A war-torn, extremely corrupt country that's just had its entire, working class age wiped out. Stephanie says, I do think the colleges are bringing these agitators and or paying them to possibly incite violence on campuses. That being said, colleges can bring in radicals in if they want. Let's just stop giving them tax money. From what I've seen and heard from U of M, that's not what's going on at all. In fact, the University of Michigan is happy to get rid of these people. They don't like them, and they haven't been violent. Jay says, can you talk a little bit about real ID? What are the civil liberties issues? The civil liberties are the government has a biometric database that keeps track of who every citizen in the country is. They shouldn't have any of that. And the earnest thing is that everyone's state ID in Michigan already has real ID at this point. Yeah, because Michigan's been compliant. We should be mad at our state government for that too. Many states don't. Many states have resisted. In fact, when Ruth Johnson was the Secretary of State, she gave us an opt-out. In fact, I think you had to opt in. Benson dragged us into that mess. And frankly, it wouldn't be so bad, at least if not for the fact the federal government is keeping this national biometric database, which the Real ID Act also gives the Secretary of Homeland Security pretty much unlimited authority to widen its usage. So it could be used in all kinds of crazy ways. You don't want the government to be able to track you by your ID. You don't want, frankly, I get offended even when people try to scan my ID. Yeah, the federal government should not be doing anything more with its citizens except for managing who its citizens are. And Patty asks, how can we be against Real ID before voter ID? Because Real ID is not the same as a state issued ID card. It is a nationally linked ID. It's a database with your biometric information on it that's going to be used for every single thing that the government does to collect all the information about you and everything that you do in your entire online presence. All of it is linked to your national ID, to the national ID database. No, I think that's outrageously burdensome. You should not need to present your papers in order to fly in an airplane domestically. This is the thing we used to ridicule. This is like Ronald Reagan, when he was asked about this, he's like, good Lord, that's the mark of the beast. Absolutely not. Yeah, but Kristi Noem's all proud of this. She's all happy. This directive, by the way, has been pushed back by the airlines for like years and years. Well, they're not pushed back by the airlines. The airlines have been opposing this for years and years and years because they know it's going to damage flying. People are going to just not fly. People are going to get turned away at the gates or at the checkpoint. So they've been begging for extensions, and year after year they've gotten it. The Real ID Act was passed in 2005, and only on the way out the door did the Biden administration's Homeland Security Department put out a directive saying we're going to enforce this starting May 7th. To be one more thing to fuck over the Trump administration, make people angry. But Kristi Noem likes it. Hey, that's great. Yeah, let's turn people away at the gate. Just don't have their nationally approved ID card. The only thing you should have to prove is that you're not a threat to the plane, frankly. Which they don't even do a very good job of anyway. In fact, when I was doing that tour at the end of last year to go from city to city to get signatures, I flew like 5 times in 5 days. I didn't realize I had a pocket knife in my book bag. I didn't even know until I got home. I flew no problem with every single one of those flights. Much better than those little box cutters they claimed on 9/11 were used. Amazing. How'd you complain with a box cutter? Hard to believe. Anyway, spending. There's talk. Supposedly, the U.S. Senate the Senate Republicans have now retreated from the position of we're not going to really cut anything to we'll approve all the House cuts and more. So we shall see. But I wouldn't count on that until it happens. And so far, nothing's happened yet. No budget Trump has signed has cut anything yet. All the Doge cuts are, as of now, temporary. Maybe that'll change. I hope it will. But we haven't seen that yet. So, yeah, my concern is, guys, and it's funny, I was watching, if you've seen Matt Walsh did a great interview with Tucker Carlson. Really good. Really encourage everyone to see it. But, one thing that Matt Walsh says, because he's talking about foreign policy with Tucker for a bit, he's like, I just don't care about foreign policy because I care about America more. And I completely get that philosophy. I don't care about Ukraine or Russia or even Gaza the way I care about the United States. The problem is these are the issues that tend to be defining a presidency. Right now, what's the big sucking sound in the budget? It's the $150 billion increase Trump's saying we're going to give to the U.S. Military-industrial complex. What's going to happen when Russia wins the war and all the money we spent there will have been wasted? The political blowback from that's going to be atrocious. Another thing I forgot to mention about the whole war in Ukraine thing, besides Trump caving to Zelensky, you know what else he's been caving to is all these European fucks. Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron and Giorgia Meloni, these people who hate his guts and can barely even hide it. You know, it's just amazing. Why does Trump want to please these people? He should hate them. He should be calling them out. You've heard J.D. Vance talking about this stuff. Even Rubio managed to condemn Germany for trying to ban the most popular political party. You don't hear Trump doing anything about these guys. He's not going after Germany or Romania, where they've just overturned their elections. Trump should be saying, these people don't share our values. Ukraine doesn't share our values. People are scum. Why should we have anything to do with them? And they hate him. They are half the reason they're so keen on getting the U.S. sucked into Ukraine is because they want to see Trump fail. They hate him. Trump should be talking to people like Vucic and Viktor Orban, because they actually are MAGA. They actually are MAGA, not these other vampires. But yeah, for some reason, I'm amazed. Like when they had that meeting at the Vatican, Trump just said, "No, get out of here. How dare you? This is the Pope's funeral." But yeah, but Trump actually, I'm sure you guys saw this. I'm sure you saw this one, which I have to say, in a way, it's very funny and very good, and it's hilarious that the president would be posting these things. Like, that fact alone is very funny, but I also have to say that there are people that will be very offended by this that Trump does not need to be going out and defending. And some of the stuff that he's been saying and doing, which just seems so pointless. In fact, this is actually this one here. This just came out 3 days ago. This has absolutely infuriated Russia. For what purpose? Here's what he wrote. Many of our allies and friends are celebrating May 8th as Victory Day, but we did more than any other country by far in producing a victorious result on World War II. That is extraordinarily offensive and completely false. Completely false. Russia threw away, well, they didn't throw away. They paid the lives of somewhere between 20 and 27 million people fighting the Germans. It wasn't American tanks that rolled into Berlin, it was Russian tanks. They paid an enormous blood sacrifice for that. And their Victory Day coming up this week is to them a more holy holiday than Christmas. And in the exactly the week before the day, again, he's just spitting on the Russian people. For what purpose? He says, I'm hereby renaming May 8th as Victory Day for World War II and November 11th as Victory Day for World War I, which is weird because in World War II, our victory was in the Pacific, which came a lot later. We won both wars. Nobody was close to us in terms of strength, bravery, and military brilliance, but we never celebrate anything. That's because we don't have leaders anymore that know how to do so. We're going to start celebrating our victories again. Again, for what purpose is he doing this stuff? I don't get it. This came out today. I just happened to see this. This is his latest post is today. The movie industry in America is dying a very fast death. Other countries are offering all sorts of incentive to draw our filmmakers and studios away from the United States. Hollywood and many other areas within the USA are being devastated. Oh, really? Is that who we're sorry for? Is Hollywood? This is a concerted effort by other nations and therefore a national security threat. What? It is a concerted effort by other nations to draw our filmmakers and studios away. Do tell. Citation needed. And in addition to everything else, it's messaging and propaganda. Oh, please. Oh, the U.S. film industry is like the cutting edge masters of propaganda of all time. And what we're going to do, we're going to tear off all movies coming to our country that are produced in foreign lands. We want movies made in America again. Oh boy. Amazing. Yeah, Patty says, we won so much goodwill with the Catholics between the trans Last Supper and Whitmer Dorito Gate. Then Trump posted this picture of himself as the Pope, and even worse, they posted from a White House account. Yeah. Again, the I hate to say it because the Democrats are keen on using this this word chaos to describe the Trump administration, but it's what it seems like. There's no strategy or no. I mean, maybe it's just like you just don't. No one can control Trump. But like I'm wearing the shirt from the assassination day. Like you would think like every day Trump would be arriving at work like the whole world's on my shoulders. What can I do to to help America become great again in the best and most productive and effective way possible? And somehow every day that involves trolling. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. So anyway, all right, let's turn now to the latest in the Christopher Schurr case. And I mentioned this in my email tonight. So I did a show last Wednesday. If you haven't seen it, frankly, throughout this entire trial, Officer Schurr's defense counsel has been lousy. They have been awful. They have been disorganized. They have been weak. They have not followed through on the points that need to be driven in. They have left things behind that they can't even use now in closing arguments. And the amazing thing is they've had tons of great witnesses. They've had some pointless witnesses too for some reason, but they've had some great ones. They had a lot of Grand Rapids Police Department officers, and they should have been bringing them up and taking every one of them through the entire video and saying, would you have done the same thing in your situation? Yes, I would. So then at the closing, they can go, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we have been through this incident with all these Grand Rapids police officers. Every single one of them testified they would have done the exact same thing in Officer Schurr's position. Every single one of them said what he did was reasonable. But they can't say that. You know why? Because they didn't take them all through the footage. They asked them lots of questions that kind of hinted at that, but they never followed through. They never followed. They have no sense of building a narrative and having a story arc and going from point A to point B. And fortunately, again, some of these witnesses have been excellent and basically had to drive the points home for them. And fortunately, this judge is so stupid that even though she does rule against the defense every time almost, she often just lets things go, thankfully. And the prosecutor is this complete ogre, Chris Becker. We might see him at some point. In fact, we might watch a little bit of him on Cross, either with this guy or maybe with this other witness. Their best witness ever was actually after Officer Schurr Friday, which was a strangely, I should say, unusually good sense that the defense had to put this guy in to get the last word in on Friday before the break for the weekend. But anyway, so Officer Schurr again comes across as a good witness, but and actually I'm kind of covering him up here, so let me move myself here so you guys can see Andrew Branca. This is Andrew Branca, law of self-defense and self-defense attorney, covering the case in his live stream, so he'll be interjecting here and there, but mostly to make the same point I would make here, which is that this examination of the defendant is something they should have rehearsed 1,000 times before trial, and yet it seems like they're winging it. So let's watch some of this.
A tackle.
As you started to pursue him, were you confident in your abilities to catch up to him?
Yes.
Was he that far ahead of you?
No.
And he had just assaulted you, is that right?
Yes.
Attacked.
After you tackle him, what was your
Felony
intention?
assault.
My intention is just to arrest him.
In that situation there that we see, did you want the driver to get up off the ground?
No, it's definitely advantageous for us to arrest somebody on the ground at that point with just their stomach on the ground.
Were you giving any verbal commands to the driver?
Yes.
What were you saying, if you recall?
And no, I told him stop resisting, get his hands behind his back.
Did
Did
he comply with any of the commands?
No.
You're not going to
As
follow
the
up.
driver's on the ground, what is he doing?
He waited till
His
the
muscles are
grass
tense.
tackle
I'm
him.
trying to grab his arms. I'm not able to get control of him.
Were you able to keep the driver on the ground during this initial skirmish?
No.
Was he able to get up off the ground?
The words they use, you hear this, and I'm watching this trial all week. Over and over again, they call this a tussle, a skirmish. Is it not a felonious assault? Not a struggle. No, it's a skirmish. It's a skirmish. It's a tussle. We're just wrestling.
Ground then?
He was.
How
yeah.
many times?
Well, he gets up off the ground a few times during the entire incident.
Now, are you trained on, and I think we've already talked about this with the training unit, but are you trained on some different maneuvers to try and apprehend a suspect in a situation like that, to try to apprehend them and get them in cuffs?
Yes.
Did you try some of those?
Yeah, I tried to initiate. Well, I did knee strikes on the driver.
What is the main goal of the knee strike?
Essentially, I was using my right knee to strike, I believe, his right thigh against what's known as the common peroneal, which is just a nerve, and essentially does provide some pain to them, but it is more or less a distraction, an attempt to gain control of them.
Were you trying to injure him?
No.
Is that a maneuver that tends to cause injury?
No.
Were you mad or upset at this driver?
No.
What were you trying to do?
I was just trying to arrest him.
Were the knee strikes effective?
No.
Now, in your training, how are you trained to approach the initial encounter like this, as far as how much energy or how hard you're supposed to go at the initial outset?
Well, you definitely want to go pretty much as hard as you can and attempt to gain control as quick as you can.
And do they train you as far as whether you should try to give as many knee strikes as possible right off the bat?
I would say within reason, whatever is reasonable at the time, and attempt to gain control. I wouldn't say just keep going and giving them knee strikes like a bunch, but it needs to be proportional.
All right, I understand. Mr. McFarland.
Again, you can see you can see from the expression on his face there, he's coming up with these answers on the fly. He didn't have these questions rehearsed. He had 3 years to rehearse this.
So we've been going probably about an hour so far in this direct.
Sorry, Exhibit 3. And Mr. McFarland, could you go to 1 minute and 45 seconds? I'm going to ask you if you could please play that to 2 minutes and 38. 2 minutes and 38 seconds. Please get in the light suit.
No, stop. Dream. Stop. 1950, got one running. Stop. Stop. Okay. Stop. Get your hands behind your back, okay? Hands behind your back, okay? Turn your hands behind your back. 1950, 34 card.
Let's get back a little bit here.
Response.
What does that mean?
I want an emergency response. I know I already asked for one, but my intent at that point is to let people know that I'm really struggling right now, and If you weren't driving fast, you better be driving a heck of a lot faster now.
Because from the moment where you first put your hand on him at approximately 1:45 until start me more cars, are we getting close to about a minute or so there?
Yes.
45 to 30.
Yeah.
Which direction was the driver running towards?
In northeasterly direction.
And was he on the sidewalk or did he run over onto the grass in a different direction?
He ran over on the grass.
Is it, based on your experience, is it normal that individuals start to run in towards houses?
Typically, people start to run onto others' property. That is kind of typically people don't just run down the sidewalk. It does happen, but I think people know that it's harder for us to chase them when they're jumping over fences and that type of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, that look right there. Yeah, Alan Gnu says the smirk
One of
and
your
smile
roles
does
to
not help.
protect all of these neighborhoods?
Again, this should have been completely rehearsed to the point where he understands that, like, the lawyer should explain to this guy, every single slightest gesture you make could doom you. Like, you should be on that stand fearing for your life the way you felt fear for your life that day, because it's every bit as much on the line, and not allowed him to ever have even crack the slightest sign of a smile. Also, many times they have shown that video may not help. Yeah, the jury's probably bored of seeing this video, but at the same time, though, you gotta drive that point home. So, and at this point, they have to show it for this particular witness examination, because they have to go through this point by point here. And I'm gonna skip ahead just a little bit.
Wouldn't be able to use it on me.
And then what would happen?
Okay, I'm back up here.
That
Here's the,
he was holding it like a.
okay, here's where they're talking about the act. This is the moment he has to make the decision to use his firearm. Here we go.
Yeah, it happens.
Now, what do you remember happening next?
Somehow I ended up behind the driver. I don't know how I ended up behind him. I saw that he had.
Also, by the way, in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, it drove me crazy. They constantly referred to, and the court, there's arguments about this, and the court allowed the assailants to all be referred to as Kyle Rittenhouse's victims, as opposed to Kyle Rittenhouse being the victim of his assailants. In this case, you see they keep calling him the driver. Maybe there's some pretrial motions I'm not aware of, but why don't you just call him the assailant? Why they call him the driver? That's such a weird way to describe it. Anyway.
Full control of the taser, meaning that he was holding it like a firearm with his thumb in a position that was blocking the safety switch, the on-off switch. And I was reaching over top of him in an attempt to shut it off in hopes that he wouldn't be able to use it on me.
And then what would happen?
And what happens next during this effort?
At some point, I start to feel him turning towards me, and I feared that he was going to use it on me.
And then what would happen?
Now, based on your training and experience, was the driver close enough to deploy probes on you?
Yes.
Was he close enough to press a drive stun on
Yes.
you? Were you basically within arm's length of each other?
Yes.
And had you experienced that taser capabilities?
Yes.
What were you thinking he was going to do with it?
I believed he was going to use it on me.
And you have firsthand knowledge of the incapacitation?
Yes.
How long does the ride last?
5 seconds in an ideal environment.
How long does it take for someone to get your pistol off and use it on you?
Second.
Did you, throughout your training, throughout your career, were you trained that the taser can cause death or serious injury
Yes.
in several different ways?
Yes.
Yeah, and this has all been established by witnesses before and after. So, Allegan News asks, when did they do the advisement before he took the stand? Well, if you mean as far as deciding whether or not to have him on the stand, that's probably a decision that you don't make until you're in the middle of trial and you see how it's going to go. But you come prepared to trial. to be put on the stand because you might have to. And this case has been going on for 3 years. This is like the moment he should have been preparing for mentally for the past 3 years. So yeah, it's all very strange. Anyway, I'm going to skip ahead to this next guy, and we will just watch a little bit of this because it's hilarious. Now this guy, I forget his name is Von something or other, but he's another use of force self-defense expert. His credentials were incredible. Like literally, for once, the defense did not let the prosecutor just wave the guy in and stipulate to his credentials. They dragged out like 45 minutes of this guy reciting his credentials. Now, funnily enough, he's also an attorney himself. So on cross, he just ruins Chris Becker. So again, folks, as you watch this, I want you to understand, Chris Becker, this deranged prosecutor, is the the Kent County prosecutor, a Republican. And this is who Republicans have sent to their district attorney's office in Kent County, Michigan.
So who's currently teaching? I'd have to look, and I might be surprised at who our new staff is as well. But if your point is, do we have a lot of former police officers? The answer is yes.
Now, even though Mr. Lewinsky is not a law enforcement officer, he was inducted to the National Law Enforcement Hall of Fame in 2023, wasn't he?
I think it was a lifetime trainer award. Yes.
So by the way, what's going on here is the defense has already had this guy. Yes, Stephen Gothal says he ruins Becker, and this guy is fantastic. Yeah, so the defense has already done their direct on this guy, and he was great. And so now what Becker is trying to do is to undermine his credibility by suggesting, well, you're just biased in favor of cops, essentially, is what he's trying to get at. And boy, yeah, he gets riled. He starts off at 9. I mean, Becker starts off by just pounding the table because that's all he's got, but then he just gets even he goes even harder. Allegan News also says, wonder if prosecutors offered a deal that was rejected. I don't think so. In fact, I mean, typically in a case like this, if you're going to charge the officer, you typically charge manslaughter, not murder. The Derek Chauvin case is when they really kind of broke the precedent and made it so that you charge officers with stone cold murder. So what kind of deal would they offer? You know, I mean, it's hard to plead to what, down to manslaughter. That's still a life-ending charge right there. So, you know, I don't know. I can't imagine what deal they might offer. The only acceptable deal is to drop the charges, basically, because you're either guilty of killing the guy or you're innocent. There's no, think of it this way, Allegan News. If they offer him a plea deal for something ridiculous, like, I don't know, shoplifting or something, what would the public say? There'd be no, the public is only going to be either happy on one side or the other. There's no middle ground here. You either charge the guy with the death or don't. Well, if you're charging with the death, the least you can possibly charge is manslaughter. Allegan says, why did the prosecutor, yeah, he goes to argue because he didn't take the deal. Gothal says Becker is kissing Nessel's ass. He's a weak man, needs to lose his next election. Absolutely, Steve, and I hope so. I'll be as a primary challenger, and I hope Republican voters will stay home on that one. You might get a Democrat, but you might get someone better next time. Until then, you have a anti-cop nutcase sitting as your DA. Anyway, let's watch this.
You just gave a presentation at the National Law Enforcement Hall of Fame induction ceremony, didn't you?
Yes,
That was just a few weeks ago.
it was.
And was in partnership with Vertra. I heard from, is that how you say it? I can't say that. I'm just trying to say it.
Vertra.
Yeah. Okay. That's Lon Bartels. That's his organization.
Lon Bartel. That's who he works for. He was not part of that training.
All right. But you've trained with him in the past, though, haven't you?
Lon?
Yeah.
Yeah, as often as I can, yes.
As often as you can. How many times have you trained with him in the past?
Taught classes together, maybe 3 or 4.
Done other presentations though with him. I heard about the SHOT Show that you did with him.
That's one of them, yeah. What we try to do with Vertra is bring their simulator in.
So he was always
we like
trained
to
with the
get
jury.
community into the simulator so that they can experience what police officers are. That's what Vertra does. So we bring them in as often as we can because they've got amazing technology.
So I guess if I understand you correctly, one of the things is the consulting group. You're the head of the consulting group for Force Science, right?
Right.
So one of the things you do, I've seen it on just about every podcast. You kind of give your plug for your podcast. Hey, you've been involved in an incident. Fill out a form. send it into here. We'll talk with you, make sure your attorney's present, and we'll go over your case. That's kind of what you do,
Yeah,
correct?
that's our pre-consult process.
Pre-consult process. You want to make sure their attorney's present so you don't get subpoenaed, right?
It has nothing to do with the subpoena. It has to do with, there is no attorney-client privilege between me and the officer or the civilian who's involved in the incident. So their attorney needs to be present so that they can protect that relationship and the disclosure. Otherwise, essentially not able to tell us enough information that we can have an intelligent conversation. So as a protection for the people calling us, we want to make sure they know, hey, when you call us, make sure your attorney's with us. So that way it's a privileged conversation.
So you can't get subpoenaed to whatever they tell you,
Well, I can still get subpoenaed, yes.
but you can't tell them anything. You can't tell anything if there's an attorney there, there's attorney-client privilege. If they're not,
I like how that look right there. You're just like, I know exactly what you're trying to do here. I'm not gonna let you do it. Because what the scumbag is actually trying to do is attack attorney-client privilege. So he's trying to make it sound like you make sure they have their lawyer there, right? So that way you can't be forced to testify about what's being said because you'd be violating the attorney-client privilege, which yes, we do take every measure to allow our clients not to lose their own rights. It's just outrageous.
there, you're free to talk to anybody about what happened.
Right. Well, no, that's not true. We still have our own confidentiality. So we will, if there's no attorney-client privilege, we're still going to not disclose the contents. If we are subpoenaed and a judge tells us that we have to disclose it, of course we will. But we still have a professional confidentiality agreement that we're not going to tell people about those cases.
Now, in terms of that consulting, isn't it true that you've said 98% of the cases you see in Force Science are absolutely professionally well done cases, officers not at fault?
Yeah, they fall within a reasonable range of options.
This is great.
Yeah.
This part's
So
great.
So 98% of the time, when somebody calls you, we want to consult with you, 98% of the time, the police officer is correct.
Overwhelmingly, police officers across the country are correct in their decision-making. I don't think you'll find statistics that disagree with that.
That's almost 100% success rate for any profession. That doesn't strike you as a little bit odd?
No. I mean, 98%, I don't have an exact percentage, but I'm
But
telling you.
those
the
were your
cases
words.
We see, right?
But that, I'm just quoting your words. It was on one of your podcasts, Law Enforcement Today, choir practice, some guys, you had a bunch of bourbon in the background, two guys. Those were your words. 98% of the cases we see are absolutely professionally well done cases. Those are your words.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
What kind of put you on the map was a 2000 article in Police Marksman, why the subject is shot in the back. That was kind of one of your big articles that kind of put you on the map, didn't it?
Not me, no.
Well, okay, you're correct, but Mr. Lewinsky, your founder, that was one of his
Yeah,
big
Bill
research.
wrote that.
Okay, but that was one of that kind of got you on the map, didn't it?
I think the concepts behind it certainly did.
You're aware you're heavily criticized in a number of different courts for science, isn't it?
I'm not.
You're not, but for science is. I got a case from Federal District Court in Florida. Force Science is widely regarded as a purveyor of unreliable pseudoscientific analysis engineered to justify officers' use of force. Its studies virtually are all non-peer reviewed, and none of them have been published in scientific journals.
Yeah, that's absolutely not true. And anybody who tried to present that to a court would be in violation of an ethical duty of candor to the court. I'm sure you've looked and seen that there's over 30 peer-reviewed studies on our website in some of the highest rated journals in the industries. So whoever advanced that position to the court was essentially
Hear
lying
him
to them.
furiously
It was a
flipping
court's
through his
opinion.
notes.
You have to take a look at it.
I don't need to, I've seen it.
He already said it wasn't him. So what's the relevance of this?
That's actually, I'm sorry. Go, yes, ma'am.
No, that's fine. We'll move along.
Yeah, he's
Talk
ready
about-
to move along. All right. Anyway, we're not going to watch the whole thing. If you want to, you can go to Andrew Branca's channel, Law of Self-Defense, on YouTube, Rumble, and all the rest, and you can watch the proceedings. So, and they are worth watching. It is worth seeing what absolute pond scum we have for judges and for attorneys, for prosecutors, that is, in Michigan. And if you think yours is no better, well, I'm in Washtenaw County, so I certainly know better, but I don't know. You never really know until they're tested, I suppose. But anyway, so as far as this goes, There's not much more we can do at this point. I still think any heat we can bring, any press we can bring to this story is worth doing. So please, if you haven't done so, please do contact your lawmakers. We do have a bill in the works, not just to protect those who are acquitted or even just decline to be prosecuted of self-defense for civil liabilities, but we have one in the works also for criminal liability too. That the state would have to pay this guy's legal fees. Which again, anything more we can do to draw attention to this case, so much the better. This case could be wrapped up as early as tomorrow, folks. Now, I'm not promising that. I don't know. I don't know how many more witnesses the defense wants to call. They have a witness list, but they don't call every single person on it typically. Once the defense rests, there's closing statements, and if there's time left in the day, they go straight to deliberations. And how long those deliberations can go on is anybody's guess. Could be a couple hours, could be days. So this could happen. This could wrap up very soon. Alganu says, in the end, prosecutor is doing his job. Defense should be doing much better. So much low-hanging fruit. Well, to that point, Alganu, you're right that the prosecutor's job is to represent his client and therefore to win. He's not feeling it. Well, he kind of is, because I think all of his his bullying nature has come through with so many witnesses that I think it's probably left a bad impression on the jury. But if you mean like, yeah, as a prosecutor, his job is to convict the guy, that's true, except the prosecutor's highest calling is to the service of justice. And if he was an honest prosecutor, he would not have brought this case in the first place. You know? Like I just rewatched My Cousin Vinny, and what happens at the end when the witnesses turns out completely exonerate the defendants, then the prosecution just drops the charges. You know, he doesn't say, okay, well, you know, I guess I'm gonna do everything I can to honestly tell the jury to convict a guy who I no longer believe is guilty. Chris Becker, this prosecutor, has had this case for 3 years. He decided to bring the charges only after BLM was agitating all over the city of Grand Rapids, and political pressure was brought on him probably. So he is either succumbing to that pressure or he's part of the game himself. Either way, intolerable and unethical, in my opinion. I don't see any ethical way anybody can pursue a case this ridiculous. And hopefully, despite the defense attorneys being as weak as they are, that the overwhelming facts brought by the witnesses is showing through. And to their credit, at least the defense has called lots of witnesses. Some they didn't need to call, frankly. Some of them are a little embarrassing, but they've also had several very good ones. And critically, not one member of the Grand Rapids Police Department has anything to say for the prosecution in this case. The only people they had were those nutcases, Seth Stoughton and the other guy, Bloomfield. And that was it, really. So, Allegan says a person was killed, so I can expect charges on this marginal case. Yes, it was not a clear-cut case like a gun was drawn on the cop. Yeah. Hold on, I got something in Rumble. I got a ban. Sorry. Stephen Gothal says he won't prosecute pedophile government school teachers, but he will prosecute a policeman defending himself and the community. Yep. Yeah. And I've heard that correct me if I'm wrong, folks, I've heard that the Kent County GOP hasn't done anything about this, which seems weird to me. So I thought they were like, hardcore types, disruptor types, which usually are like the kind of people that would be on our side on this kind of stuff. But apparently, no, it's strange how that goes. I don't know. Well, anyway, folks, that will do it for us for tonight. More from us soon. We'll see how this case develops. Again, pray for the acquittal. And hopefully an acquittal soon. Oh, I was going to pop on something else. I'll tell you what, folks. We'll have a special bonus segment on Rumble only after this, because we did touch on something earlier tonight. I was talking about this funny story of Mike Waltz, who was accidentally, not accidentally, but stupidly using an app that was Israeli linked to archive his private signal messages. And then we actually somehow twice I actually didn't cover this other story. I meant to cover this and I forgot about this. This also happened this week. We were talking about all this stuff with the National Security Council. Guess what else happened this week? they actually appointed an Israeli American to the National Security Council. So we actually have a foreign citizen serving on the National Security Council, where, by the way, her biography on the Foundation for Defense of Democracy's website sounds like a total America First group, where she served as a fellow. It says she works at the Israeli Defense Ministry. The White House has now denied this. So there you go. There's her name, Merav Seren. And she's appointed as the director of the Israel and Iran file. Oh, that's good. That's good. That'll be a totally neutral thing. Anyway, since the topic of Israeli influence in the American security complex came, I thought I would play an old clip that you will not find very easily anymore. In fact, even though it was aired just 3 months after the September 11th attacks, it was very, very quickly deleted from the Fox News website. In fact, the article used to just say, "This story no longer exists." You didn't get a 404 error. You just got, "This story no longer exists." So I'll tell you what, on Rumble only, we will watch a little bit of this video, which is amazing because it has Britt Hume and Carl Cameron, who are, both of them hardcore neocons, talking about the incredible level of penetration into the American national security system that Israel actually had, even back in 2001. So we'll take a look at that. But in the meantime, for the folks on YouTube and Facebook and X, we will just have to sign off for now. You can catch us over on Rumble, on the Rumble stream, which if you got our email blast, it's the link in there. I guess I could put a link in the description right now or in the chat, I suppose. I will put the Rumble link in the chat. If that works, I don't know. I don't think YouTube normally lets you post links in chats, but maybe it will for me as the creator of the video. I don't know. But anyway, we'll continue the stream on Rumble, so you can watch that. Until next time, on you and on our X feed too. We'll keep the video going on X as well. But we're going to sign off YouTube and Facebook for now. Till next time, guys, thanks for all you do for liberty, and hold tight while we